Imagine, for a moment, that you are floating in the absolute darkness of the open ocean, miles from the nearest shore and thousands of feet above the abyssal plain. For millions of years, this void was never truly silent. It was a cathedral of sound dominated by the blue whale, a creature so massive its heartbeat could be detected from 2 miles away. Their songs were the loudest biological sounds on Earth, clocking in at a bone-rattling 188 decibels, capable of traversing entire ocean basins to connect with a mate they had never seen. These weren't just calls. They were the acoustic infrastructure of the sea, a constant, booming reminder that giants walked among us. But if you drop a hydrophone into the water today, you might notice something terrifyingly different. The deep bass that used to vibrate the very hull of your boat is fading, replaced by a hollow, suffocating stillness. The orchestra has stopped playing, and the silence is deafening. This isn't just poetic exaggeration. It is a measurable, horrifying reality that scientists began tracking in earnest around the mid-2020s. We used to think that if the whales went extinct, they would disappear one by one, floating belly up after a harpoon strike or a ship collision. But the truth is far more insidious. They are disappearing from our ears before they disappear from our eyes. The data reveals that during intense marine heat waves, the songs stop abruptly, turning the ocean into a library after closing hours. It's a phenomenon that chilled researchers to the bone because it signaled a behavioral collapse that precedes a biological one. The giants are still there, drifting like massive ghosts in the gloom, but they have gone mute. And in the ocean, silence is not peace. Silence is the first symptom of death. So, why have the gods of the ocean taken a vow of silence? The answer lies in a cruel calculation of energy. Singing takes breath, it takes muscle, and most importantly, it takes calories that are becoming impossible to find. As the oceans warm, the massive swarms of krill, the tiny, shrimp-like engine of the marine food web, are collapsing or moving to erratic, unreachable depths. A singing whale is a dying whale because every note they belt out is a calorie they cannot afford to waste when their bellies are empty. We are witnessing a species-wide decision to shut down, to conserve every ounce of strength just to keep their massive hearts beating for one more day. They are starving in a kitchen that has suddenly run out of food, and they are too exhausted to even cry out for help. But starvation isn't the only thing choking the life out of the deep. We have also blinded them with our own chaotic noise. Imagine trying to find your family in a pitch-black room while a jet engine screams directly into your ear. That is the reality for a whale in the Anthropocene. The shipping lanes, the deep-sea mining drills, and the sonar blasts create a thick, impenetrable smog of noise that masks the few calls they still try to make. They are social creatures, evolved to communicate across hundreds of miles, now isolated in a sensory prison where their voices can't reach their kin. It's a lonely, terrifying existence, drifting in the dark, calling out to a partner who might be just a few miles away but is effectively on a different planet. This leads us to the most unsettling realization of all. We are likely looking at the walking dead. Biologists call it an extinction debt, a scenario where a species is still present, but their population has fallen below the threshold of recovery, and they are merely waiting for time to catch up. The blue whale, with its slow reproduction and immense caloric needs, is an evolutionary relic that cannot pivot fast enough to survive the changing chemistry of the water. They are the old gods of this world, titanically specialized for an ice age ocean that no longer exists. We are watching the slow-motion crashing of a biological wave that started rising 50 million years ago, and as it breaks, it leaves nothing behind but foam. Now, let's look at what remains in the wake of this collapse. Welcome to the ghost ocean. It is a strange, unnerving environment where the water feels clearer, emptiness feels heavier, and the food web begins to fray at the edges. Without the whales to cycle nutrients from the deep to the surface through their massive plumes of waste, the plankton bloom less, the fish schools thin out, and the water turns a startling, sterile blue. It creates a sensory deprivation tank effect for any diver brave enough to venture out there. You get the distinct, primal feeling that the throne is empty, that the sheriff has left town, and that the laws of nature are temporarily suspended. It's the quiet before a storm, but this storm isn't made of wind and rain. Nature, as we know, absolutely abhors a vacuum. It despises an empty niche and will twist biology into pretzels to fill it. When the apex predator, the dominant biomass, is removed from an ecosystem, it triggers a chaotic scramble for power that can produce nightmares. The energy that used to go into building 90-foot mammals doesn't just vanish. It gets diverted into other, faster, stranger life forms that are waiting in the wings. We tend to think of evolution as a slow, graceful ladder, but in times of crisis, it is a frantic, violent cage match. The fall of the whale isn't the end of the story. It's simply the opening bell for the next round, and the contenders rising from the muck are unlike anything we have seen in human history. As the songs fade and the warm, oxygen-starved waters spread, the stage is set for a different kind of giant. The mammalian era was warm, loud, and charismatic, but the future is cold, silent, and gelatinous. Down in the twilight zone, where the oxygen is low and the water is acidic, something ancient is beginning to pulse with new vigor. It doesn't have a backbone, it doesn't have a brain, and it doesn't need to sing to find you. The whales are leaving us, my friends, but don't worry about the ocean being empty for long. Look closely at the shadows, because the slime is beginning to rise. Let's take a leap, not just in imagination, but in time. 2 million years have passed since the last whale song echoed through the deep. Humanity is a fossil layer, and the ocean they left behind is a very different beast. It is a warm, soupy world, where the water holds less oxygen and is thick with the ghosts of dissolved shells, making it more acidic. In this planetary fever dream, the rules that govern the age of mammals have been completely rewritten. The intricate food webs, once balanced on the backs of krill and the appetites of fish, have shattered. But life, in its relentless, stubborn way, has found a new champion for this hostile new era. A champion that doesn't need much oxygen, loves warm water, and thrives in chaos. This new king is not a king at all, but an empire of slime. The jellyfish, once a beautiful, ephemeral nuisance, have inherited the Earth's oceans. With most of their bony fish predators long gone, and with our artificial coastlines and harbors having provided them with infinite breeding surfaces, their populations exploded in a biological event known as jellification. But this isn't just a bloom, it's a permanent conquest. They are no longer individual animals drifting on the currents, but have become the very fabric of the sea itself. Imagine flying over an ocean that isn't blue, but a shimmering, pulsating, translucent mass. This is the age of the titanic jellyfields. What would it be like to swim in such a world? It would be a sensory nightmare unlike any other. The water is thick and viscous, not with mud, but with mucus and disconnected tendrils, making every movement a struggle against a living, gelatinous fog. Visibility is reduced to inches, and the sunlight struggles to pierce the first few feet of the gelatinous blanket, casting the world below into a perpetual murky twilight. You wouldn't be swimming in water anymore. You'd be pushing your way through the circulatory system of a planet-sized creature. The feeling of isolation would be absolute, punctuated by the slimy caress of unseen things brushing against your skin in the dark. But these aren't the simple, brainless drifters we once knew. In 2 million years, evolution has had time to tinker, to experiment, and to weaponize. These new jellies are more than just passive bags of water. They are beginning to develop distinct, specialized organs. Picture fleshy, cauliflower-like growths embedded in their bells, pulsing with a faint, ghostly light. These are not eyes, but something far more alien. Complex pressure sensors, evolved to a terrifying degree of sensitivity. In their silent, murky world, sound and pressure have become the dominant senses, and the jelly fields have become a single, interconnected listening device. This network of sensors allows the entire jelly field to act as one colossal, decentralized predator. A fish, struggling in a desperate search for oxygenated water, sends out minute-pressure waves with every flick of its tail. These vibrations, once lost in the vastness of the ocean, now travel through the thick, gelatinous medium like a tremor through a spider's web. Miles away, a dozen different parts of the jelly field register the signal. There is no brain to process it, no conscious thought, just a cascading biological reflex. The entire field subtly, almost imperceptibly, begins to contract, tightening the net around its prey. The hunt is a slow, methodical, and horrifying process. The struggling fish finds the water around it growing thicker, the space to move constricting, as the gelatinous walls close in. There is no chase, no climactic struggle, just a gradual, suffocating embrace. The fish is eventually immobilized, not by a single predator, but by the crushing weight of the ecosystem itself. It is then that the specialized stinging cells, the nematocysts, do their work, injecting toxins that don't just paralyze, but begin to externally digest the victim. The jelly field doesn't eat. It simply absorbs, drawing the dissolved nutrients into its vast, collective body. This is the perfect survival strategy for a low-energy, low-oxygen world. It is brutally efficient, requiring almost no caloric output for an immense return. The jelly fields have no thoughts, no fears, and no rivals in the sunlit zone. They have turned the entire surface of the ocean into a passive, inescapable trap, a living minefield that waits with endless patience for anything to fall into it. For millennia, they reign supreme, a shimmering, silent testament to the power of simplicity. They are the ultimate expression of life in a dying world, a world they helped create. But even an empire of slime has its limits. This gelatinous dynasty rules the surface, but the deep, dark trenches and the rocky seafloor remain worlds apart. Down in the crushing blackness, where the water is colder and the pressure is immense, a different kind of evolution is taking place. The jelly fields are a soft, vulnerable hegemon, and nature is already preparing a challenger. Something hard, something with legs, and something with a rudimentary, brutal intelligence is beginning to test the edges of the slime. The age of the jellyfish is about to face its first real threat, not from above, but from the armored horrors crawling up from below. 10 million years have now passed since the last human city crumbled to dust. The gelatinous empire of the jelly fields has reigned for eons, a soft, silent autocracy that smothers the ocean's surface. But down below, in the abyssal plains and the winding canyons of the seafloor, the planet's geological clock has been ticking. The ocean's chemistry, once thrown into chaos, has found a new, stable equilibrium. This new balance is rich in calcium and other minerals, washed down from the eroded continents, creating a perfect construction yard for life forms that build their skeletons on the outside. The age of flesh and bone is a distant memory. The future belongs to armor. There is a strange and persistent joke in evolutionary biology known as carcinization. It's the observation that, time and time again, evolution's answer to a problem is to turn something into a crab. It's happened at least 5 separate times. Shrimp, lobsters, and other crustaceans have independently converged on the same perfect body plan. A wide, flattened carapace, jointed legs, and powerful claws. It seems to be one of nature's favorite designs, a blueprint for a versatile all-terrain survivor. In our time, this was a curious quirk of biology. In this future, it has become the foundation for a new dynasty of monsters, as the crab form is no longer constrained by size. Meet the abyssal crab kings. In the mineral-rich, high-pressure environment of the deep sea, the old biological rules that limited their size have been rewritten. These are the descendants of humble spider crabs and king crabs, but they are now the size of minivans, their carapaces thick enough to withstand the immense pressure of the depths. Their long, spindly legs have become massive, pillar-like limbs capable of striding across the seafloor with an unnerving, silent grace. They are not solitary creatures but move in vast, unnerving herds, their clicking, scraping legs creating a constant, percussive rhythm that echoes through the submarine canyons. The seafloor is no longer a desolate landscape. It is a marching ground. Hunting for these titans is an exercise in sensory horror. They have no need for eyes in the crushing darkness, for their entire bodies have become instruments of vibration. As they march in their silent, coordinated packs, they feel for the subtle disturbances in the sediment left by anything soft, fleshy, and foolish enough to be hiding there. A burrowing worm, a lone, desperate fish, or the sinking carcass of a jellyfish from the world above, all create a telltale tremor. The lead crab in the pack will stop, its long antennae twitching, and then the whole swarm will pivot in unison. A silent, armored battalion turning its attention to a single, terrified point. There is no sound, no roar, just the focused, implacable movement of 1,000 tons of chitin and claw. But here is where the true mystery begins, where the story shifts from simple survival to something that hints at a deeper, more unsettling intelligence. Explorers in this future world would find things on the seafloor that defy explanation. Vast, spiral patterns made from the bones of their prey, arranged with a chilling geometric precision. Strange, Stonehenge-like structures built from manganese nodules, assembled for a purpose we could never comprehend. This isn't the behavior of animals. It's the beginning of ritual, the dawn of a culture so alien that it registers to us only as cosmic horror. They are not just hunting. They are building, they are arranging, they are creating a world in their own terrifying image. Their dominance over the benthic realm is absolute. Any creature that dies in the upper ocean and sinks towards the bottom is considered a gift from the sky. The soft bodies of the giant jellyfish, which ruled the surface for millions of years, are torn apart with casual, brutal efficiency by the crab king's massive, specialized claws. One claw is a jagged shredder for tearing flesh, the other a massive, piston-like crusher for pulverizing bone and shell. They are the cleanup crew and the executioners of the deep, ensuring that nothing soft or vulnerable can ever gain a foothold on their armored kingdom. The seafloor is their fortress, and they are its undisputed rulers. For millions of years, a tense equilibrium holds. The jellyfish rule the sunlit surface, a passive, gelatinous membrane, while the crabs rule the eternal darkness below, an active, armored legion. They are two separate empires, a heaven and hell that rarely interact, save for the rain of organic matter that drifts from one to the other. The crabs are masters of the ground, but they are tied to it. Their heavy, mineral-dense bodies cannot swim, cannot rise into the vast, open water column that separates the surface from the floor. That three-dimensional space, the pelagic zone once patrolled by the great whales, remains a no-man's land, a vast, empty wilderness waiting for a true leviathan to claim it. The reign of armor is powerful, but it is a two-dimensional empire. Evolution, however, always plays in 3 dimensions. The stage is now set for a new claimant to the throne of the sea giants, one that is not bound to the surface or the floor, a creature that can unite the two worlds with speed, power, and a predatory hunger that neither the jellies nor the crabs can possibly withstand. As the armored kings march across their silent, bone-strewn kingdom, they are completely unaware that in the warm surface waters, an ancient bloodline, long thought to be a relic of the past, is beginning a spectacular, terrifying comeback. 25 million years have now drifted by. The Earth has continued its restless shift. The continents have pulled apart, opening up vast new seaways, and the planet has warmed significantly. The poles are ice-free, and the oceans are a tropical bath, teeming with energy. In this sweltering, high-energy world, being warm-blooded is no longer the advantage it once was. In fact, maintaining a high body temperature is a burden. The ocean is ready for a new kind of giant, one that doesn't waste energy heating its own blood, but instead soaks up the sun's warmth to fuel a terrifying, explosive power. We are witnessing the return of the reptiles. History, it seems, loves a cover song. Just as the ancient mosasaurs once returned to the sea to dominate the Cretaceous oceans, a new lineage of lizards has dipped its toes into the water and decided to stay. These are the descendants of monitor lizards, cousins of the Komodo dragon, that have evolved into fully aquatic leviathans. We call them the false mosasaurs, or neovaranids. But unlike the sleek, fast-moving reptiles of the past, these creatures are built for a different kind of terror. They are the ultimate ambush predators, grown to the size of school buses, drifting through the currents like massive, scaly logs. Imagine floating in this tropical ocean. The water is crystal clear, unlike the slime-filled seas of the past epoch. You see a dark shape drifting on the surface, encrusted with barnacles and seaweed, looking for all the world like a massive piece of driftwood or a floating island of debris. It bobs gently in the swell, lifeless and inert. Small fish dart around it, seeking shelter in its shadow, completely unaware that the island is watching them. This creature has evolved to be the ultimate hypocrite. It mimics safety to attract the doomed. The horror of the neovaranid lies in its patience. Being cold-blooded, it has a metabolism that runs at a glacial pace. Can go months without eating, drifting for thousands of miles on ocean currents, conserving every ounce of energy until the perfect moment. It doesn't need to chase you. It just needs to be near you. It is a biological landmine waiting for a trigger. Its eyes, positioned high on its skull like a crocodile's, are the only part of it that moves, tracking the silhouette of anything that swims too close to its jagged maw. And when it finally strikes, the violence is absolute. In a fraction of a second, the driftwood explodes into motion. The massive tail, previously hanging limp in the deep, whips with tremendous force, propelling the 60-foot body forward. The jaw, lined with serrated, recurved teeth designed not just to puncture, but to shear meat from bone, snaps shut with the force of a hydraulic press. There is no struggle, no fight for survival, just a sudden, violent disappearance. The water churns white, then red, and then settles back into silence. The giant returns to its drift, eyes open, waiting for the next mistake. These are the new lords of the surface, but they are a stark contrast to the whales they replaced. Whales were social, vocal, and emotional creatures. They sang, they played, they mourned. The neovaranids are silent, solitary sociopaths. They have no songs, no pods, no culture. They are driven by a simple reptilian algorithm: heat, drift, kill, repeat. The ocean has become a quieter, colder place, not in temperature, but in spirit. The emotional intelligence of the sea has been lobotomized, replaced by a cold, calculating hunger. This reptilian reign is terrifying, but it is largely confined to the upper layers of the ocean, where the sun can warm their blood. But what of the deep? What of the abyss? That eternal midnight zone where the sun never reaches and the pressure can crush a submarine like a soda can. Down there, isolated from the surface for 25 million years, evolution has been working on a project of its own. It hasn't been building armor, and it hasn't been building size. It has been building a nightmare of efficiency. While the lizards bask in the sun, the deep trenches have become a laboratory for the bizarre. The isolation has allowed for a strange kind of madness to take root in the genetics of the deep-sea dwellers. We are about to leave the world of recognizable animals, crabs, lizards, jellyfish, and descend into the realm of pure, speculative biology. The next giant isn't an animal in the way you understand it. It is a colony, a hive mind, a living city of flesh that has learned to thrive in the void. Prepare yourself, for we are going down to meet the Leviathan of the void. We have now arrived at the deep future, 50 million years from today. The map of the world is unrecognizable. The Atlantic has widened into a superocean, isolating the deep trenches for an eternity of silence. Down here, at depths where the pressure would crush a nuclear submarine like an aluminum can, the sun is a myth. For millions of years, this abyss has been cut off from the surface world, allowing evolution to spiral into directions that defy vertebrate logic. In this eternal midnight, biology has stopped building individuals and started building cities. But these cities breathe, they swim, and they hunger. Meet the Leviathan of the void, or as future xenobiologists might call it, the colonial maw. At first glance, it looks like a dragon made of glass and neon, a 200-foot ribbon of bioluminescent light winding through the darkness. But this is not a single animal. It is the ultimate evolution of the siphonophore, the family of creatures that includes the Portuguese man-o'-war. In our time, they were drifting bags of stinging tentacles. In this future, they have evolved into a terrifyingly cohesive muscular unit. Millions of genetically identical clones, or zooids, have fused together to form a body that is both solid and fluid, a living hive that moves with a singular, terrifying purpose. The horror of the colonial maw is that it has no brain, at least not in the way we understand it. There is no central command center to cut off, no head to sever. Instead, it possesses a decentralized, distributed consciousness. Every inch of its body is thinking, processing vibration and chemical signals in a chaotic but perfect harmony. It is a democracy of hunger. When one part of the colony detects prey, the signal ripples through the entire superorganism faster than a nerve impulse. It doesn't react like an animal. It reacts like a trap snapping shut, a seamless integration of millions of tiny reflexes acting as one. Imagine floating in the abyss, surrounded by absolute blackness. Suddenly, a light flickers in the distance. It's not a steady glow, but a hypnotic, rhythmic pulsing of blues and purples, moving in mesmerizing patterns. This is the Maw's lure. It doesn't just dangle a light like the ancient anglerfish. It orchestrates a light show. Specialized bract zooids on its flanks ripple with bioluminescence, mimicking the swarming patterns of plankton or the mating signals of deep-sea squid. It creates a false galaxy in the void, a beacon of interest in a world of sensory deprivation. Drawn by the lights, a massive, blind crustacean, perhaps a descendant of our crab kings, lumbers out of the gloom. It reaches out to investigate and the galaxy goes dark. Instantly, in the same heartbeat, the water around the prey becomes solid. The maw doesn't bite. It envelopes. The colony unspools like a ribbon, wrapping around the victim in a tightening spiral of gel and muscle. Thousands of feeding polyps, armed with neurotoxic darts, fire in unison. The prey isn't being eaten by a predator. It is being digested by the environment itself, dissolved by a living wall that has become its tomb. This creature represents the absolute pinnacle of biological efficiency. It has no wasted organs, no unnecessary bones, no vulnerability to aging. Because it is a colony of cloning units, it is biologically immortal. If a part of it is damaged or bitten off, the colony simply grows new members to replace the loss. It has been swimming in this trench for potentially millions of years, growing larger, smarter, and more complex with every passing eon. It is a biological ship of Theseus, constantly replacing its parts but maintaining its terrible, hungry continuity. To witness the colonial maw is to look into the face of a truly alien intelligence. It has no fear, no mercy, and no curiosity. It is a biological machine optimized for one thing: converting the darkness into energy. It makes the whales of our era look like primitive, fragile accidents, warm-blooded, short-lived, and wastefully emotional. This is the cold, hard logic of the deep future. It is a reminder that while we humans prize individuality, nature's ultimate endgame might be the perfect, selfless unity of the swarm. And so, the ocean of the future is a place of silent, glowing monsters. The songs are gone, replaced by the hum of the hive. The warm blood has cooled, replaced by the efficient gel of the colony. It is a world that would terrify us, yes, but it is also a world of breathtaking, alien beauty. It is a testament to the fact that life will not just survive the end of our world. It will thrive, transforming the wreckage of the Anthropocene into a new garden of horrors. The king is dead. Long live the colony. Let's pull back now, away from the crushing darkness of the trench, away from the reptilian violence of the surface, and float in the silence of space. Looking down at this future Earth, 50 million years from now, it is breathtakingly blue, a marble polished by time. The continents have drifted into new, unfamiliar shapes, and the great ice caps have melted and reformed in a dozen different configurations. From this height, the monsters we've met, the continent-spanning jellies, the armored battalions of crabs, the colossal lizards, and the glowing hive minds, are invisible. But we know they are there, churning in the dark, living out dramas as epic and violent as any in human history. It is a humbling realization, isn't it? We often think of the age of whales, the age of mammals, as the pinnacle of marine evolution. We assume that warm blood, complex brains, and songs are the goal of nature. But this future ocean tells a different story. It tells us that our era was perhaps just a brief, noisy anomaly. A warm, frantic interlude in a history that is otherwise dominated by the cold, the silent, and the patient. The true giants of this planet aren't the ones that sing. They are the ones that endure. The whale was a beautiful accident. The jellyfish is a permanent feature. You might have noticed that in this entire journey, we haven't mentioned us. Humanity. That's because we are gone. Not just gone, but forgotten. The ocean doesn't mourn us. It doesn't hold a grudge for the plastic we choked it with or the noise we filled it with. It simply swallowed our cities, ground our concrete into sand, and used the iron from our skyscrapers to feed the plankton that fed the new giants. The Anthropocene was just a thin, weird layer of sediment, a hiccup in the deep time of geology. The ocean has healed, not by going back to what it was, but by becoming something completely new. Remember the silence we feared in the beginning? The silencing of the songs? Turns out it wasn't an ending after all. It was a clearing of the stage. Nature, in her infinite, terrifying wisdom, wiped the slate clean to make room for a new cast of characters. The ghost ocean we worried about was never truly empty. It was just pregnant with potential. It was waiting for the warm-blooded landlords to move out so the strange, efficient, and monstrous tenants of the dark could move up. The silence wasn't death. It was a deep breath before a new scream. And what a cast it is. We have the titanic jelly fields, turning the surface into a living, breathing minefield. We have the abyssal crab kings, building their silent bone temples in the deep. We have the neovaranids, the cold-blooded executioners drifting in the tropical sun. And in the deepest dark, we have the colonial maw, the immortal city of flesh that defies death itself. These are the new gods of the sea. They are not kind, they are not gentle, and they certainly do not sing. But they are magnificent in their own horrific, efficient way. This cycle, dominance, collapse, and reinvention is the only permanent law of this planet. One day, 50 million years after this moment, the sun will expand, the oceans will boil, or a rock will fall from the sky, and this gelatinous, armored empire will fall too. The crabs will be crushed, the jellies will evaporate, and the maw will finally starve. And from that wreckage, something else will rise. Maybe it will be smart, maybe it will be kind, or maybe it will be something so strange that we don't even have the biology to imagine it yet. So, the next time you stand by the shore and listen to the crashing waves, remember what you are really looking at. You aren't looking at a finished painting. You are looking at a canvas that is constantly being scraped clean and repainted. The ocean is not ours to save, and it is certainly not ours to conquer. We are just tourists here, blinking in the sunlight for a few seconds before the night comes back. The giants are always waiting in the wings, ready for their cue. Sleep well tonight, dreaming of the blue whales while we still have them. Cherish their songs, their warmth, and their gentle power, because the future is rushing towards us, and it has very different plans. The ocean of tomorrow is quiet, it is hungry, and it is waiting for us to leave so the real work of evolution can begin. Sweet dreams.